Hello everyone, this is DeeDee here. Welcome to my stop on this art journaling YouTube hop. I am doing an art journal page with you. I came to this art journal page with no intentions. I had absolutely no idea whatsoever what I was going to do. And I love when I do that because then amazing things happen. So I have something really fun to show you that is new to me, kind of using a process I've used before, but you know what? Let's just get into it. So there's so much cool stuff happening. This YouTube hop is amazing. There's some great art journalers on here. Definitely visit everybody out. These are our sponsors. We have Joggles, 7.Studio, Crafters Workshop, 49 and Market, SnipArt, UmWowStudio, and Viva Las VegaStamps. So we're all very excited to be here. I am starting with a piece of 9-inch by 12-inch Canson watercolor paper. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you'll have heard me say this, and if you haven't, hey, welcome to my channel. I'm really glad you're here. I love to art journal on watercolor paper, and that is because it's super sturdy and I can throw at it anything I want. I did pre-prep this surface with some gesso, so some Liquitex gesso, and I just covered the whole entire thing, the whole entire page, and I sort of made sure to purposely leave some brush strokes because I wanted some extra texture, and I like to splatter my paint and kind of put in some acrylic washes, so when I have that extra texture, then I tend to get some really nice results from that. I have taken this UmWowStudio stencil and some Deco Art Media acrylic, and I have added these beautiful stars all over my page. Stars mean a lot to me, and I have like a really big connection with celestial bodies and the ever expansive universe that's around us. And then when I was done with the stencil, I squirted it with some water from an UmWowStudio water bottle, and then I pressed the negative of that star stencil into some open spaces on the page. I splattered a little of that teal paint that I had left over, and then I did sort of a really, really thin color wash with it. And that's just where you add in like a bunch of water to your paint and you really thin it out. And you should, in all honesty, also add an acrylic glaze to that so that the binding molecules in your paint stay nice and strong. And then I just kind of moved that color around a little bit on my page. And I make sure that that layer is dry before I move on. And now I've got out, this is a Ranger ink archival pad that I have filled with the I'm sorry, not distress, with the black soot archival ink. So the black soot originally was only a distress ink by Ranger Ink and Tim Holtz, and then they came out with that luscious dark black color in an archival variety. So I've been stamping with that, and this is a design I made for Viva Las VegaStamps. These are some carved X's, and there's 6 little X's on that stamp, and they make a really, really great mark and a really, really cool like background addition. It's really nice, and at this point I am like really loving, and oh, and I'm kind of just picking up things that are on my desk. I'm not gonna lie, like I came into this, as I said, with no intentions, and I said just do all the things you love, all the favorite things you love, and we'll see what happens. So I am now using an acrylic block as like a as a palette, and I do that a lot, and they're really easy to clean because they're acrylic. So I scribbled with a Stabilo Marxol on that acrylic block, and then I activated it with some water, and I did that acrylic wash idea, but this time I'm doing it with the Stabilo Marxol, and it's really cool because it adds this sort of grungy, dirty, gritty texture. And remember earlier I said that I was very specific about leaving some brush strokes in my gesso? Well, that Stabilo Marxol settles into that texture. It's very, very cool. And you can see it in the close-up shots that were at the beginning of the video. They'll be at the end of the video. And then I also will have some high-res photos on my blog. So if you want to see them extra close up and get a really good idea of that texture, please visit my blog. Yeah, and it just is really cool, and it gets gritty. That's my favorite way to explain it because it really does. I also really love vintage things, so like vintage ephemera is really top notch at the top of my list. It makes me so happy, and so I have a little piece of paper. It was an old like like kind of like a memo book, and it was tiny, and so I've kind of saved a few pieces here and there because I didn't want to run out of it. But I just, after playing with the teal and the black, I knew that that would look really good as complementary colors often do, because the vintage paper has an orange tint to it, and I'm not sure if it got rusty or something, but it's really cool. So I glued that to the bottom corner, and then I'm kind of looking at the whole thing and I'm thinking it's getting a little overwhelming with all my small marks on there, because I have a lot of small close together marks. They're kind of in little clumps, and so between the stars and the X's and then my splatters. So I got back out my Liquitex gesso, and I'm using a Catalyst mini blade to scrape some gesso onto my background. And it's funny, but I always end up using gesso later in my project as well as just at the beginning to ground my piece. So and in the when I use it the second time, I'm grounding as well. This time I'm kind of knocking back some of that more like obnoxious in your face mark making that I had, especially with that crisp black that was on top of that beautiful teal, and it really helped. It turned out really, really beautiful. So I gave that a dry, and then I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, this bottom left-hand corner is so delightful with that vintage text. Why don't I carry the rest of those colors throughout the rest of the page? And then this whole page just ends up being some complementary colors. And so complementary colors on the color wheel are colors that are opposite from each other. And when they're wet, they'll make browns and grays. But when they're dry and they're next to each other, like red and green, or the yellow and purple, or the blue and orange, then they just make each other look that much more vibrant. So it's really cool. And if you've never played with complementary colors, I definitely urge you to. So I started by getting out this Titan buff to mimic that color of the paper, and I created these 3 big circles. And then I got out my Nickel Azo gold, my quinacridone Nickel Azo orange. I'm trying to remember, gold. It's really funny that I can't get the easy word. I can't remember what it says on the bottle, but I will get that out. And I will include a list of supplies at the bottom so that you can for sure see exactly what I'm using. I know that some people really like to recreate what they see, and that really helps them learn. And I absolutely invite you to do that. I love that. And I would love to see, if you did, how your art journal page turns out. And if you don't like teals and oranges as your complementary choice, remember those other ones that I said before. There's also purple and yellow as a complementary color combo, and then red and green. I'd be really interested to see how your page turned out. So I'm using that quinacridone Nickel Azo Gold, now I'm pretty sure that's what it is, to mimic that sort of like rusty little piece that's down at the bottom, that piece of paper, and also to really oomph the orange portion of my complementary colors here. And it's a high flow golden acrylic, so it has a ton of fluidity to it. You can see I barely added any water, and it's already really moving out, and I'm moving around, I should say, and I'm just sort of adding it in some certain areas on those circles. Now this is the part I said earlier where, like, if you kind of just play and you let yourself go, then you find really, really neat techniques. So I used to do this a lot, and I still do occasionally, but I use the back of my paintbrush to add little dots. And I think I've just lately been exploring more like other mark making techniques, and so I haven't done this as much, but I do still do this. And it's a high flow acrylic. I want to remind you that high flow, not even fluid, but high flow. So it has a lot of movement to it. It's almost like an ink in the bottle. And I used the back of my brush to do some dots. And then when it was like almost dry, I spritzed it with some water just to get a little bit of bleed happening. And it looked like little rusty flecks had landed on my page. It was really, really cool. And it lent itself really well both to the big circles that I had worked on and that little piece of paper down at the bottom. Oh, and you can see my page is upside down right now, and I turn my page all the time. One, I think it's so that I can always keep what I'm working on in camera view, but also I think less about the piece overall, and I get to focus on little areas if I'm not always looking at it straight up and down. So yeah, this is super cool. These little quinacridone Azo gold flecks or specks or spots, and they turned out really nice. So I did that and I let those dry, and then I was thinking, you know, I really need some more darkness in here since I pushed back a lot of those X's. So I got back out my Stabilo Marxol and I went around my circles, and then I got out a really thin round paintbrush and I activated a little bit of the Stabilo Marxol. Not every mark that I made, but then because it looks really nice and grungy, and it contrast is really important to me. So some of those scribbles are scribbly and some of them are more watery. They had some vintage buttons, and I haven't added buttons to anything in a really long time. And in my head, I was thinking, I want to add some stitching. What would be the best way to do that? And I could do it with a machine, or I could stitch in some French knots or some X's with a needle. But then I remembered I had a whole slew of buttons. So I picked out 3 buttons and I just kind of threw them down onto the circles, and I liked how they landed. So then I stitched those into place, and I'm using a DMC floss, so that it's like cotton embroidery floss, and it's like a light teal color, so it is really nice and helps mimic those stars that are in the background. I kind of did some scribbling with, well, not kind of, I did a lot of scribbling with a graphite pencil, just a normal number 2, and you could use whatever you want. The harder the pencil, the lighter your marks will be. And here at the end, I thought, you know, I really like some more oomph to my nickel azo gold, so I got that back out, nickel azo gold. I got that back out and added another layer of paint for some more oomph, you know, some more contrast. And it turned out really well, and I had a lot of fun. And it's always interesting to see what you come up with when you go in with no intentions, because sometimes I do start an art journal page thinking, oh, I'd like to try this technique, or maybe I should try that, or whatever. But today I sat down and I just used my favorite stuff, and then as it went, I, you know, just kept going. Oh, this is just a little journal I'm working on for the Brooklyn Library, and it's a the sketchbook project, and I had some extra paint, so I filled a little page, and I'll work on that some more later. But I try not to waste too much paint. And that's it. So we're drying here, and then we're done. Thanks again. Move on to your next stop. You can click this link here at the end, right here at the end of my video. Feel free to subscribe to me. I have all kinds of videos, lots of art journaling videos, lots of mixed media videos. I have some really exciting things on the horizon. And don't forget about our sponsors. Visit them, check them out. There are some prizes being awarded along this hop. Leave comments. I'm excited to have you. And thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.